48b. We're at the first one in the line is V'neifes Tzufim. Neifes Tzufim literally means what droops from the hive. So one of the things that was lost was Neifes Tzufim. What exactly is Neifes Tzufim? My Neifes Tzufim. Rav says Sofa Agabe Nafa. It's the fine flour that floats on top of the seed, the sifter. And it's so thick that it looks like a dough that's been kneaded with honey and oil. It apparently tastes very good as well. Okay. But Levi says, Shtei kikaras hanid bakos betanar. You have two. The tanner of old. I don't even know what they call it today. It's sort of a domed oven. You put the heat source in the inside. If you go to in Israel, some of the stores that serve like Lafa and Pita will have ovens like this, where they attach the dough to the side of the oven.
Okay.
So what happened was, there's a miracle that used to happen, that when you do it from two sides, the dough would expand so much that they would touch each other. So that was shtei kikaras and bakos betanar. Until they would grow in size until they touched each other. B'shubin Levi said, "Zedvash haba min hatzifya." This is the honey that comes from the high mountains. My mashma. How do we know that Neifes Tzufim means that the honey of the high mountains? The Targum of Sheshes, like Rav Sheshes translated. Okay, the pasuk that he's translating here is 1 second. Kashatasena hadovrim. When he's 1 second. He's talking about the this is a pasuk in Dvarim, where Moshe Rabbeinu recalls the fact that the Emorim pursued the Jews like Dvarim, like honey. I'm sorry, like Dvarim is bees, like Dvarim. So what Rashesh has translated this as Kamada Nitzin Darfur Yasal, like bees chase you, Vishayotin Barumi Alma, and they fly around the world. Umasian Dufsha Me Isve Tura, and they bring honey from the grass of the mountains. So they have wild nectar honey, and they have honey that's made from all sorts of different berries. I guess the most premium was the mountain honey. It's not wholesome. We learned kol hanitzik tahar. What's nitzik? Nitzik, we spoke about it briefly a few times. Nitzik is when you pour from one to another, so there is sort of a drip that carries. So the idea of nitzik is that, even though technically speaking they're not connected, because whatever flows out of the top really is already down at the bottom. So in other words, you're pouring from one cup of, let's say it's tummy, or let's say it's tahar, to a cup that's tummy. So it becomes tummy when it lands in the tummy cup. Now, but it is true that it is connected through the flow of water, the flow of liquids. Generally, nitzik is not enough to transfer tuma, except chutz midvash tzifim v'hatzvichim, except for the honey of zifim and tzvichim honey. Okay, and what's the reason for this? The reason is because this honey is so thick and sticky. Apparently, when you pour the honey and you leave go of it, it comes back up. Obviously, our honey does that to a certain extent. This honey apparently did it to a much larger extent. So therefore, it's considered a connection, because it's not whatever flows down is coming back up. Okay, my zifim, what's zifim? It's honey that's so thick that people would adulterate it. They would add in other substances because they knew they can get away with it. Rish Lakish says, it comes from the place called Zif. Zif v'telim u'ba'alos. One of the places called Zif. I remember we find a similar debate. When the people came from the city of Zif and they told Shaul, David is trying to kill you. My Zif, and what is the city of Zif? What does Zif mean? They came from Zif. What does it mean? It's people that would lie. It's because of the place. Zif v'telam u'ba'alos. Okay. Upasku Anshe Amano, when the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, men of integrity disappeared. Amr v'Yitzchak, Elu ben Adam shemaminim b'Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Anshe Amano means people that were faithful to God. There's an extreme level of faith. In Tanya, we learned, Rabbi Eliezer HaGadol Aimer, Rabbi Eliezer HaGadol says, Kol mi sheyesh lepas b'salai, if somebody has a loaf of bread in his basket, v'Aimer, and he says, Ma oichel l'machar, what am I going to eat tomorrow? Einay ela miktane amano. Such a person is from the small-minded people. He does not have perfect faith in God. Somebody with, as a matter of fact, there was a custom among big tzaddikim. They would never go to sleep if they didn't get rid of all the money that was in the house. So one of my ancestors is Divrei Chaim of Tzanz, and he had this custom. He would not go to. He had nothing in his house, with no valuables except for two things. He had a becher, a goblet, and a kiddush. But other than that, maybe he even had two, it could be at some point. But other than that, there was nothing valuable in his house. He wouldn't go to sleep until every single bit in his house was given to poor people. Otherwise, he's lacking trust in God. Now, the truth of the matter is, one of the interesting things to note here is that this is talking about specifically before the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. Once the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, we have all sorts of takanas usha. And among the things that are instituted is that you're considered a poor person, even if you have less than a year's salary. So all of a sudden, it became acceptable for a person to have savings. So you're allowed to have savings today. But ideally, obviously, the highest level is, and this is the idea of few big tzaddikim. If you have any extra money, that's somebody who's lacking emunah. Behind Rabbi Elazar, this is what Rabbi Elazar says. This is what the verse states. Ki mi baz liyayim tanos. Because they deride the day of small things. Mi garam l'tzadikim she's baz v'shachanun l'asal lavai. Why is it that tzadikim don't have why is their table in the world to come not complete? Tanas shahayaben. It's the small things that they had. Because they saved from today to tomorrow. Rava says, Elu Ketane b'nei Rashia Yisrael. These are the people, the children of the wicked in this world. So the children of the wicked, meaning children whose parents are wicked, and therefore the children died because of their parents' sins. They render the judgment of Hashem in the world to come. They rip it up. They ruin it. Why? They say to God, Rebbeinu Shalom, Master of the universe, because if you wanted to take revenge from them anyway, why did you have to take us away from them if you plan on punishing them anyway? And therefore, God agrees to that argument, and God, in the end, has to give them reward and take and remove some of their punishment. Amr B'Loi bar Yivrachia. El Molit Filosa Shel David, Kol Yisrael Meicher Ravav. If not for the tefillah, the prayer of David, everybody would be selling Ravav. Ravav is like a stain. It's like dirty things. Shenemar Shisa Hashem Mara Lachem. Okay. The context here is critical. 1 second. Okay. The pasuk before this speaks about poor people. And in other words, it says Kilo lenetzach yishkach evin. It won't be forever that you'll forget a poor man. And it says Shisa Hashem Mara Lachem, Hashem provide them Mara. Mara means stature. In other words, what David HaMelech accomplished with that prayer was that God gave stature to Jewish people, and therefore they weren't peddling in things that were degrading. V'amar Biloi bar Yivrachia, Rabbi Biloi bar Yivrachia says, "Al molit filosa shel Chavakuk hayibeitz hamivacham miskasem talas echad v'eskim Torah." If not for the tefillah of Chavakuk, then two two Torah scholars would need to cover themselves with the same garment. Shneimar Hashem Shemati Shemacha Yiraisi Hashem Pa'ocha B'kerev Shonim Chayeo, and B'kerev Shonim is read B'kerev Shnayim, with two in the company of two people, two Torah scholars Chayeo, give them life. Atikra B'kerev Shonim Elo B'kerev Shnayim, meaning give life, give sustenance to two scholars together. They shouldn't need to wear the same clothing. You have two scholars that are walking together and there is no Torah in between them. It's appropriate for them to be consumed by fire. Now, I mentioned to you that 3 days ago, that Eliyahu Hanavi was elevated by fire to the world to come. He didn't die in the sense that most people die. And this is the verse that talks about it. This is Eliyahu Hanavi and Elisha were walking. Holech v'dover. They were speaking in Divrei Torah, in words of Torah. V'hine rechavesh. And then a chariot of fire approached them, and Eliyahu Hanavi signaled that he has to depart into the chariot. The reason that there was nothing untoward happened was because they were speaking in Divrei Torah. But if they weren't talking in Torah, it would be appropriate for them to be burned. Also, very interesting name. I don't know if this name ever appears elsewhere in Talmud. You have two scholars that live in a city, and they do not agree with each other in halacha. Echad meis, one dies. Ve'echad goyla, and one goes into exile. Shenemar.
Rabbi, I'm sorry. Could I have the page position again, please?
Sure. We're on 49a. Let's say about a third of the line down. And the first word in the line is Shenemar. One second. Shenemar, Lonos, this talks about the cities of refuge. Lonos Shama Ritzach, that a murderer can run there. Asher Yirtzach Esri'eu Bivli Das, who kills his friend Bivli Das without knowledge. What does it mean he kills him without knowledge? Bivli Das, Ve'ein Das El Torah. Das is a reference to Torah. And that means that because Shenemar Nidmu Ami Mibli Hadas, they were silenced because they did not have das, they didn't have the wisdom of Torah. And the reference here is that because they didn't learn from each other, so therefore, because they did not learn from each other, therefore, one of them will end up killing the other one, but by accident, and therefore one of them will die, and the other one will have to go into exile. Amar of Yehudah Breder of Chia, the son of Rav Chia said, "Kol Talmud Chacham ha'osek b'Torah mitech haTchak tfilas nishmas." If a Torah scholar studies mitech haTchak from difficulty and adversity, typically Tchak means like a lack of money. Tfilas nishmas, God hears his tfilas. Shenemar ki am b'tzion yeshev. 1 second. Ki am betzin yeshev Yerushalayim. Bachar le'sifka chanon yichanecha v'kol za'akecha kishmaite anach. 1 second. Kishim asay anach. Okay, the am betzin yeshev, the nation that resides in Tzion here, is talking about Yoshvei Yeshivas. That's typically a reference to sitting here. We talk about is the sitting of scholars. And the verse says, Chanon Yechanecha, God will grant your prayers, the Kol Zakecha, to your voice that you're calling out to him. When he hears you, he will answer you. So the reference here is that Yoshvei Tzion is those that sit in Jerusalem, a reference to the scholars, and you see that God responds to the prayers. God will provide food and bread and water, and 1 second. Okay, Now, you speak about lechem tsar means a small amount of bread, umayim lachatz, and a small amount of water. Evidently, these people were poor if they had to be given this small amount. And you see that God responds to their prayers and gives them what they need. Rabbi Yehudah says, they are satisfied from the presence of God. Shenemar, v'hayu einecha royais esmerecha. So this is a continuation of the previous verse. And God gives them bread and water, but then they get to witness God's presence, and that is found as that they find satiating. The curtain isn't closed in front of them. The paragod is sort of a curtain that prevents anyone who isn't supposed to go into the upper worlds, sort of the worlds where the angels reside. There's a paragod, it's a curtain that doesn't let them enter. So the paragod, this curtain is not closed in front of them. God won't cover himself from you. In other words, you'll be able to perceive God even through that curtain. Okay. Every day is cursed. Rava says, every single day, every day's curse is worse than the day before it. Shenemar, because the verse says, in the morning you'll say, who will give us evening, nighttime? And in the evening you'll say, I wish I would have had the morning. Hi biker, which morning? If it's tomorrow morning, well, maybe that one will be worse. Who knows what tomorrow will bring? Ella the Cholaf. Rather, he says, well, the afternoon is so bad, I wish I could be back in the morning. So what I wish in the morning for the evening, and I wish in the evening to go back to the morning, because the morning is at least less, not as bad. Okay, the obvious question here is a very sobering end to a parak. If everything's getting worse and worse and worse, and what's the future or anything? Why is the world lasting? So the Gemara says, "Kedusha the Sidra v'Yeheshmi Rabbi Agadah." Very important. Kedusha the Sidra is the organization of stating God's holiness, and this refers to the Uval Tzin prayer. Uval Tzin is comprised of the Kedusha of God, the sanctification of God, with an Aramaic translation, right? And therefore, that is at least a staple amount of Torah learning that everybody has every single day. And also the Yeheshmi Rabbah that said after Agadah, when somebody learns Torah or a group learns Torah, often there's a custom to say Kaddish afterwards, and that is what supports the world. Shenemar, as the verse states, second. Eifasa k'may Eifel, the Eifel Tzalmavis, the world is dark of the gloom of the death's shadow, Eifel Tzalmavis, the loy Sidorim, and what it's missing is order, Sidorim. Hayesh Sidorim Tefiyah may Eifel. But if there are Sidorim, there's a certain order, then the world can emerge out of that gloom. And that order is the order of the Kaddish that's after Torah study, and the order of the Kedusha that's split and that's really said in Hebrew and translated in Aramaic. The tal does not fall for blessing. Venital tama paris. Second. Okay, so we said that the taste, the flavor of fruit was removed. Tanya Shimon Elazar, Tahara botl tam v'reach. Tahara, keeping the laws of sanctity, that was why the fruit was so flavorful and had a pleasant smell. Meiser bittel shuman. Meiser removed the fatness, sort of the fatness here means that the fruit was very full. It was very filling, very Shuman Dogan, the sort of the fatness of the grain. Rav Huna eshkach tumarta de chaninusa. Rav Huna found this date of what was it? Chaninusa. It was very creamy, meaning it was filled with flavor, and it had a distinctive smell. Shakla karcha b'sidris. He quickly picked it up and he wrapped it in a kerchief. Also, Rabba Bray. So Rabba, the son of Rav Huna, came. Amarlei, he says to him, "Arichna recha de chaninusa." I smell the pleasant smell of this date. Amarlei, he says to him, "Benita tahara yeshbach." Evidently, you practice the laws of tahara. You're very careful with being tahar, and that's why you're able to detect that I have this date with me. Yavani Elais, he gave it to him. Adahachi also Abba Bray. After that, Abba, the grandson, the son of Rabba, which is the grandson of Rav Huna, he passed by. Shakla Yavani Elais, so he gave it to his grandson. In other words, Rabba gave it to his son, which was the grandson of Rav Huna. Amarlei, so Rav Huna says, "B'ni samachtas libi v'kisa es shini." You made me very happy, but you also banged my teeth. In other words, you made me very happy that you were able to detect the smell, but then and you took the present, but then you sort of gave it away and gave it to my grandson. A father has compassion on his son. The b'ni abni. The son's love is for his own son. In other words, the son loves his son more than he loves his father. Similar story. Rav Acha bar Yaakov Itol baby Rav Yaakov. Rav Acha, the son of Yaakov, he had a grandson whose name was Rav Yaakov Bar Barte, the son of his daughter. And it seems there was an unfortunate situation, and for whatever reason, Rav Yaakov grew up in his grandfather's house, Rav Acha. He gadol when he got older, Amrli Ashkai and Mai, he said, "Pour me a glass of water." Amrli, he says to him, "La brichano, I'm not your son." Rabbi Barbar Tachani. This is what people say, when a grandson needs to be raised by the grandparents. So he says, I'm your grandson. Why can't you raise me as a child? And then when he gets older, he says, "Oh, Barbar Tachana, I'm your grandson. I don't have to do. I'm not a son, and I don't have to treat you like a father." Okay. Now the more trashy. The Pulmashal Aspasyanis goes to Alatoras Kasanim. Let me translate this. During the campaign of Aspasianus, Vespasian, Gozru al Taras Chasanim, they banned the crown of the Chasan. We'll learn exactly what that is. Ba'al Ha'irus, and on an event that was done during the Erusin. The Pulmashal Titus, in the campaign of Titus, Gozru al Taras Kalais, they banned the crown of the bride. V'shal Yelamed Adam Espanay Yavanis, that people should not teach their children Yavanis. We'll soon see Chachmas Yavanis is not really a language. It's sort of a royal tradition. It's like a language that doesn't involve words. It's certain motions, and it was considered a very upper class nobility thing. That they would sort of have these motions of how they would communicate with each other. That's what Chachmas Yavanis is. The Pulmas Acharon in the final campaign, it said that a kala should not go out, decked out like a bride, inside a city. Rabbi Seinu Etiru should take the hakala purim and eventually the rabbis permitted that. Okay, Misha Meis Rameir, when Rameir passed away, Botlu Moishlim Mishalom. Those that were able to give parables ceased to exist. All the people that gave parables since then were not the same as the same caliber as Rameir. Misha Meis Ben Azai, when Ben Azai passed away, Botlu Hashakdanim, those that truly immersed themselves in Torah study. Mishameis Ben Zayma, when Ben Zayma passed away, Botlu Hadashanim, those that were able to speak to people, they became, they disappeared. Mishameis Rabbi Kiva, when Rabbi Kiva died, Botlu Kavod Torah, the honor of Torah was diminished. How is it diminished? There's two Kavod Torahs here. The first one here means it's very simple. Rabbi Kiva was able to explain every letter, not only every letter, but every tag, every crown on every letter of the Torah. It's tremendous power to be able to explain every single thing that was in the written text of the Torah. When he passed away, because that ability was lost, we say the honor of Torah was diminished. Mishmeser Chanina ben Daisa, when Chanina ben Daisa passed away, Botlu Anshe Maisa, people that were able to truly, accord miracles disappeared. Chanina ben Daisa was a known miracle worker. Famous story, right? He said that the vinegar should burn, and the vinegar burned. Okay, Mishmeis Rabbi Yossi Katanta, when Rabbi Yossi, the small one, died, Pasku Chasidim. That was the end of the generation of the Chasidim. Chasidim is a very specific definition. Chasidim are those that do more than they're required to do. But Lamanik was Shemai Katanta. Why was he called Katanta? Shahaya Katanta Shachasidim. He was the smallest of the Chasidim. Mishameis Rabbi Yechon ben Zakkai, when Rabbi Yechon ben Zakkai passed away, Bodol Ziv HaChachma, the glow of Chachma, of wisdom, disappeared. In other words, his face would glow from his wisdom. Mishameis Rabbi Gamliel HaZaken, when Rabbi Gamliel HaZaken passed away, Bodol Kavod Torah ended. What was the Kavod Torah? 1 second. Okay, the honor of Torah is as follows: that until his day, people were very strong and they were able to study standing. Think like factory workers that stand the whole day. Torah scholars would stand an entire day. And when Rabbi Gamliel HaZaken passed away, there was a weakness that descended into the world, and people can no longer stand an entire day. Umeisa tahara uprecious, and purity and precious is refraining from indulgence. Those ideals also were minimized. Mishmeis Rishwal ben Pabi, when Rishwal ben Pabi died, Botla Ziv HaKahuna, the shine of Kahuna was gone. Mishmeis Rabbi Botla Anova V'Yeraschet, when Rabbi passed away, Anova, humility, and Yeraschet, fear of sin, also were mitigated. There would never be someone again who was as humble as Rabbi. Toner Rabbanan, it's not clear if this is an extension to the Mishnah or it's its own brisa. Regardless, Rav Pinchas ben Yair said, "Mishachar Beit HaMikdash, Boishu Chaveram, Ubnei Chayron." The Torah scholars and 1 second here, and people of nobility became embarrassed. V'chafu were ashamed. They started. They had to hide themselves. And nobody listens to men of great stature. For Govru Bali Israel, and the power is given to the mighty people of Bali Loshen, and to the people that know how to talk, politicians. The Ein Dersh Ve'ein Mevakesh, and nobody's looking out for the Jewish people, and nobody's asking for compassion from God. Amilan Olishon, who do we have to save us? Alavinu Shemashayim, on our Father in heaven. Rabbi Elazar HaGadol Aimer. Rabbi Elazar HaGadol says, "Miyom Shechar Beis HaMikdash, from the day the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, Sharu Chachimaya L'Mehevi Kisifrayal." The great scholars have become like students of children. The Sifrai and like teachers of children. The Sifrai and the teachers of children, Kichaznaya, like those, like the Gabon, like those that attend to the synagogue. The Chaznaya Ka'amad Ara, and the people that attended to the synagogue became like the regular common folk. The Amad Ara and the people, the regular folk, the commodores, Mem Testament base, top of the page. Oslo Vidildala. They became more impoverished. The Ein Shal Ve'Mevakesh, nobody's looking out for the Jewish people, nobody's asking for compassion from God. Amilan Elishan, who do we have to rely on? Alavinu Shemayim, on our Father in heaven. Continue. Be'ikvus Mashiach, in the period where Mashiach, before Mashiach comes, the heel of Mashiach, the period before Mashiach comes, Chutz Beyaska, there will be a tremendous amount of insolence, of chutzpah. The Yoker Ya'amir, and costs will soar. There will be inflation. Hagef and Tita Imperia, the vine trees will provide a full harvest, and yet the amount of alcohol consumption will be so excessive that the Hayayin Beyoker, wine will still be expensive, despite the fact that the harvests are full normal harvests. Umalchus to Hepachaminas, the government will turn to heresy. The Ein Techacha, nobody will be at a level that they'll be able to tell other people what to do. because everybody will be sinning at some level, and therefore, if somebody offers rebuke, the person will turn around and say, "Who are you to offer me rebuke?" Beis Havad, the study house was typically at the edge of the city, and because the study house would be abandoned, it would be yilus nus. It would be sought out by the promiscuous folk to establish a brothel there out of sight of the community. It was at the edge of town. V'Hagol Yecharv, and the Galil, the northern part of Israel, will be destroyed. V'Hagavlon, the area of Gavlon, which is it's the area that borders Israel to the south. Yoshum, it will also be destroyed. It will be desolated. V'Anshi Agvul, the people of the border cities, Yisayvu Me'ir Le'ir V'Lo Yechanenu. They will travel from city to city, but they won't find a place to live. The Chachmas say from Tisrach, the wisdom of the scholars will rot. The Yirei Chet Yimasu, those that fear sin, will be despised. V'Emes, and truth, Tehena Ederos, it will be hidden. Na'orim Pnei Zakenim Yalbinu, young people will embarrass their elders, and not only that, Zakenim Yamdun Nektanim. This is while the elders accord a tremendous amount of honor to infants, to children. Ben Minavel of, the son will embarrass his father. Bas Kama Be'ima, a mother will rise up against, a daughter will rise up against her mother. Kala B'chamaisa, a bride to her mother-in-law. Oive Ish, the enemies of a man, will be Anshe Beisai, the people in his household. Pnei Hador, the face of the generation, is Kipnei HaKelev, it's like the face of a dog. Okay, article explains that this is an expression that there would be no compassion, like a dog who has a bone doesn't share it with any other dogs. Haben enemis bayish mi'aviv, a son will not become embarrassed from his father. And what do we have to rely on? On our Father in heaven. Says the Gemara, Rav. Rav says, Lo shanu elasham melach v'gofras. When we talk about the crown of the chassan, we're talking about a crown that's made out of salt and sulfur. However, a crown of shalhadas made out of myrtle, that's permitted. The shalveret, and that made out of roses, is also permitted, mutter. Even myrtle and rose is also prohibited. However, shalkanim shalchilas, if it's two different types of reeds, chilas is also a type of reed, then mutter it is permitted. Levi says, Af shalkanim shalchilas also, even a crown made out of reeds is also prohibited. Af shalkanim shalchilas also. Kanim and chilas is also prohibited. Okay, va'al ha'iros, they decreed against a certain custom of erison. What was that custom? My eros. Amr Belazar, tavla dechad puma. It's a bell with a clapper. 1 second. Okay, and this bell was used as a drum to play music at its erison, and they stopped that practice. Rabbi Ravuna Avla Lebrei Tanbura. He made a tambourine for his son. As Avua, his father came, Tavra, he broke it. Amrlei, he said, Michlep Petava Dechat Puma. People will think the sound that this tambourine makes is just like the one clapper bell. And therefore people will confuse it, and it's forbidden. Zil Ovidlei Apuma Dechatzva, Apuma de Kpiza. Go make your drum on top of a large vessel called a chatzva, or across the mouth of a pitcher. And that has a different sound, and people will not confuse it with Tavad Chatpuma, a bell with a clapper. Okay, but Pulmashal Titus Gozru al Taras Kalas. They banned the crown of the bride. Maya Taras Kalas. What exactly is this? Amar Rachana, Amar Bechanan, Ir Shalzav. It's a city of gold. Ir Shalzav was sort of a plate that was worn by a woman over the forehead. Akiva famously bought one for his wife. The Gemara in Shabbos talks about it a few times. This was a very, very expensive piece of jewelry. It was worn only by the nobility, and that became prohibited once the once Titus's campaign was successful in destroying the area, destroying the Beis Hamikdash. Tanya Namihachi, the bride teaches as well. Ezva Taratz Kalas, what is a crown of the bride? Ir Shazov, it's a city of gold. Aval Isa Isa Kipa Shamilas. However, you can make a hat of. 1 second. Yeah, interesting. Rashi says Kiva Shamilas is fine wool. Typically, Milas is actually not that. It's they said here also. 1 second. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, Milas often means silk. Over here, it means an ornament, a headpiece made out of fine wool is permitted. Okay, so in other words, it's only a gold headpiece that's prohibited, and a headpiece that's made out of wool is permitted. They also banned the canopy, the chuppah of chasanim of the groom. My chuppahs chasanim. What exactly is that? Zuhuras hamizuhevets. Okay, so Rashi seems to imply it's sort of a cloth where it's plated with gold that it turns into a hat. So think of a talus, the gold plates, it like fits on like a hat. Yeah, okay. It's basically the chuppah would be stiffened with gold. Okay. This gold thing is what is intended with by chuppahs chasanim. Papyrus. But he's allowed to make a lattice out of reeds and hang from it whatever he wants, even things of gold. Okay. So we learned that you can't teach your son Chochmas Yavanis. When the Chashmonai kings were fighting with each other, there were two brothers, Horganus and Aristobulus. Horganus was on the outside, and Aristobulus, he was on the inside. Every day they would lower a basket of dinarim to the soldiers of the siege, and they would provide them with two animals for the sacrifices. There was an elder in the city that knew Chochmas Yavanis. This is sort of a nobility mannerisms, where you're able to communicate by a certain set of motions. So laws lahem Chochmas Yavanis. This means he motioned the Chochmas Yavanis thing. He said, as long as you're busy doing this service, then you won't be. In other words, as long as you provide them the sacrifices, you will not be able to conquer them. The next day, they drop down a basket of coins. They put a pig in the basket. While they were lifting up the pig, the pig stuck its feet into the wall. The land of Israel shook. 1 second. Okay, and the area of 400 parasa shook. Amru, at that point, they said, "Our Adam sheigala chazirim." Cursed is the man that would raise sows, pigs. Our Adam sheilamed libnoi chachmas Yavanis, and cursed is the man who teaches his children chachmas Yavanis. At that time, we learned because the city they laid siege to the city. So therefore, they destroyed the crops anywhere they could find that was close to the city. So it should be very difficult for the besieged city to get anything to eat. So that year, they had to get the carbon omer and the carbon shte'alechem, which are typically brought from the closest crop, and needed to be picked from a very distant place. So Gemara asks, Rabbi says, "Be'eretz Yisrael loshen sursi lama." In Eretz Yisrael, what's the need for loshen sursi? Loshen sursi is the language that the Yerushalmi is written in. It's a what they call the Western Aramaic dialect, where Zohar is written in a very similar language as well. If you're in Eretz Yisrael, you shouldn't write in this Aramaic, Western Aramaic dialect. You should write either in Lashon Kodesh in regular Hebrew, or Lashon Parsi, or you should or Lashon Yavanis, or you should write it in Greek. But Amr of Yosef says, Bavel Lashon Arami Lama. Why do we speak Aramaic in Bavel? Ela Oy Lashon HaKodesh, Oy Lashon Parsi. Either we could speak Persian or we should speak Lashon HaKodesh. Anyway, evidently here, Rebbe sees no problem with speaking in Greek. So the Gemara says, no. Lashon Yohanas L'chod v'Chachmas Yohanas L'chod. Speaking in Greek, learning Latin, there's nothing wrong with that. However, Chachmas Yohanas, this communication method, that's the problem. So the Gemara asks, Chachmas Yohanas Miasira, is this type of communication indeed problematic? But Amr of Yehudah, Amr Shmuel, Yehudah says in the name of Shmuel, Mishum of Shuming Gamliel, in the name of Shuming Gamliel, Mind Asiv, this that the verse states, Eini Oilol Lenafshi, Mikol B'nais Iri. My heart cries out for all the daughters of my city. Elaf Yilodim Hayu Beis Abba. There were 1,000 children in my father's school. Chamesh Me'as Lamdu Torah, Chamesh Me'as Lamdu Chachmas Yivanis. 500 of them studied Torah, 500 of them studied Chachmas Yivanis. V'lo nishtayr behen Ela Ani Uben Achi. Uben Achi Abba Ba'asya. And my father's my nephew, cousin in the city of Asya. Okay, well, obviously you see the destruction here, but the point here is that his father ran a school teaching people Chachmas Yivanis. What was the purpose of that? Obviously, it's permitted. The Gemara says no, it's not permitted. The house of Gamliel was different because these people were around kings, and they needed to know how to communicate in this sort of nobility, mannerisms of the nobility. The Tanya we learned, Mitzap or Kumi, Areza Mispar Kumi Areza Midarki Hamari. It's a certain type of haircut. This haircut is forbidden because it's the way of the Amari. However, Avtulas ben Reuven, Tiru l'saper kumi. Avtulas they allowed to get himself a hairstyle of the kumi. Shukar of Malchus, because he was close to the king. So basically, because the house of Gamliel hung around nobility as well, they also were allowed to learn Chachmas Yivanis. Let's wrap it up here. But in the last campaign, they said a Kala should not walk out of the city by period by time because of modesty. In other words, an event shouldn't be entirely public. And obviously, this is something that the rabbis permitted. In other words, a bride is allowed to get married in the middle of the city. When Rabbi Yochanan passed away, Chachma was gone. It was a tremendous loss of wisdom. When Rabbi Eliezer passed away, it was as if a Torah scroll was buried because he knew so much, and so much of what he knew he took with him to the grave because nobody remembered it. When Yeshua died, counsel was gone, and Rashi points out he knew how to debate the heretics very well, and therefore when he passed away, that ability was lost. When Rabbi Akiva died, Botlu was Zroye Torah. Those that were really able to understand the depths of Torah and his, that capacity, disappeared in a certain sense. The Nistimu Mayonas Chachma and the wells of wisdom were closed up. Mishameser Belozman Azaria, Botlu Ataris Chachma. When Belozman Azaria passed away, the crown of wisdom was gone. Shataras Chachma Ashram. The crown of wisdom is wealth, and he was exceedingly wealthy, and he was the last scholar to be exceedingly wealthy. When Ben Daisa passed away, miracle workers ceased to exist. He was the smallest of the Chassidim and the last of the Chassidim. Shektonim were people that were totally immersed in Torah. When Ben Zayma passed away, those that were able to speak to the people, they were gone. Mishameis of Shem Gamliel. Mishameis ben Zayim Batal Nishana means the exegetes, those that were able to darshan. Mishameis of Gamliel Olaguvoi, grasshoppers came around. Rabu Tsaras, and there were many trials, tribulations. Mishameis Rebbe Hochblut Tsaras, there were a double amount of tribulations. The Gemara says Mishameis Rebbe Batal Anova V'Yirascheit. When Rebbe died, humility and fear of sin, those he exemplified them so much that those ceased to exist as well. Amar le Rav Yosef, this is a fascinating Gemara. Rav Yosef says to the Tana, whoever said this, like Tisnei Anova, don't read humility. I know, because I am just as humble as Rebbe. What a statement. Rav Nachman says, Utana to the author, Letisni Yeraschait, don't read fear of sin, to Ikana, because I am just as I am also somebody who indeed fears sin. Hadron Allah Egla Rufa, Sleep Alam Sech the Sotah. Mazel Tov. Okay, tomorrow.